I want to talk about the ripple effect of the things that you've got going on in your life and what impact that has to your surroundings, to the people that you are immediately interacting with, to your friends, to your family, to your colleagues, to your neighbours, to your community, whomever that might be. And it really was inspired by a book that I read recently. And it's a book called When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. And what really attracted me to this book was I was actually on the lookout for a book to read, and I consulted with my AI partner and said, look, these are the types and styles of books that I like to read. I'm into self-development, self-education. I like them to be entertaining and such. And this was a recommendation, and I took a peek at it and I thought, you know what, I think that's actually going to be quite interesting. And then in the foreword of the book, it became quite apparent that the author was not there to see the end of the book. There was a serious cancer diagnosis that had to be navigated, which became the premise of the entire story. And really, where the ripple effect part comes for me is that he was going through this very personal journey. Of course, he had a wife and ultimately had a daughter as well, and it was the journey and the impacts to both him, to his profession. He was a neuroscientist and a neurosurgeon as well. Not very many of those in life, and it really just hooked me in. Obviously, that's what it's meant to do in terms of the foreword. It's to give you that inspiration to keep going, and it really didn't become more about self-help for me. Eventually, ultimately, as I was going through the material, it was just a real account of why certain things hit differently at certain points in life. Whether it's a catastrophic life event that happens, whether it's something that changes your life materially for the better. There's just a lived experience that goes with that, and the theme for me ultimately became that ripple effect. If you are going through something, you're going to be going through that as an individual and as some form of collective, and there's going to be an impact and implications for those around you. And it was one of these kind of dichotomies that he dealt with in terms of going from being the doctor and looking at patients in a particular way to being the patient, and then starting to realize that the way that he was going about it before was very much, it was very much, what problem do I have to solve for this other human being? And I resonate with that, really, I do, in terms of my coaching, because sometimes I can get or go to problem solving mode very, very quickly, and that doesn't really help the client be in and of the moment, just be, to try to sit with what it is they're going through, to trying to understand what the accumulation of all the life events up to and including that point have given them to being who they are in that moment, and to giving them the experience that they're having there. So he has that realization to say, I'm actually dealing with a human life here. I'm dealing with a person, with another human being, and it's not always just about a problem to solve. Yes, that there's going to be some sort of reason that they are interacting with you. Certainly some reasons that people come to me for coaching, and while that's going to be a byproduct or an end result that we're hoping to get towards collectively, there's something more deep than that. And I think that really resonated with me, and certainly that was the crux that as I was taking my notes through the conversation, that I really thought of, and it lends itself to a couple of key concepts here, actually three key concepts that I took from the book. The first one being truly, genuinely meeting people where they are, and asking yourself and being very, very honest with yourself about how often do you genuinely, truly meet people where they are. Not where you are, not where you want them to be, not what you're hoping for in terms of the interaction, the relationship, or what you want for them. It could be coming all from a very good heart-centered space, but truly, genuinely meeting them where they are. And how are you going to know where they are? Well, you're going to have to ask some questions and get to the root of the situation, the circumstance that you're dealing in. And a lot of times we don't do that. I certainly make an endeavour to do that every single day as I'm coaching, as I'm practicing or preparing for coaching, is giving myself that opportunity to ask those insightful questions that gives more insight, gives more reality, gives more practicality to the circumstance and situation, and it gives an awareness. It evokes awareness, is the terminology we use in the coaching profession, with the client, to say, this is actually how I'm doing. Because you could have someone saying, I'm fine, everything's okay, I'm actually kind of cool for right now. And then the more you start to dig in, the more you start to realize, well, you know what, that's actually That's kind of what I would like to say. It's not the actual practical reality. So how are you? How are you doing? What have you been up to? What are you struggling with? How does that feel? What's the implications or impacts of what it is you're going through for right now? And it gives you that real sense of knowing and understanding what and who and how you could and should be in this particular interaction to get the best of it or get the best from it and give your best to it as well. And a lot of times we don't do that. A lot of times we go in essentially, quite frankly, with our own agenda to what we want to get from it, rather than saying this is an actual community. This is a shared experience that we're having, and I want to be able to give to this situation, to be able to get as much as I can from this situation, and I can only do that if there is a genuine connection with what's going on for the other person. And that really truly came around, in terms of the presenting problem instead of meeting the person in the problem, if that makes sense. And it's one of these things that I would encourage you to have a think about, and think about some of the interactions that maybe haven't gone the way that you were hoping they were going to go in the recent past, and start to think about why that was. Did you go in with an agenda? Did you go in just to solve that particular problem? Did you go in and not really pay heed or attention to what the other person was experiencing, what they were hoping to get from that, and what the journey was going to be through that particular part? Concept number 2 for me was really just who you are when the going gets tough. When you have, in the experience of the book, of course, a life-altering event, a catastrophic, a mortality issue, quite frankly, but when you have a life-altering circumstance that happens in your life, who are you when life kind of stacks up against you? Are you someone who approaches it head on, who has honest, open conversations with themselves and other people? Are you someone who shrinks away? Are you someone who likes to keep it private? And are you someone who would look for and really benefit from and enjoy the support systems that they have created, that they have available to them? And you can be different things in different circumstances, of course. It's not just a one size fits all. What the author does of the book is he, through a series of conversations and lived life experience that he has with his wife, with his colleagues in the medical profession, and ultimately with his own doctors, he then makes this profound decision to say, I want to keep on living rather than focus on and waiting for death. And it was quite an emotional book, quite frankly, and one that really stirs up the thought process to say, how am I doing that right now? I'm not too young, but I'm not too old. I'm healthy. I'm happy. I'm vibrant. I'm energetic. I really, really enjoy my life, and I'm very grateful and blessed for all of the circumstances that I have in my life. But that's an active decision for me. So how actively are you deciding to either live in an active state or a passive state? And the passive state, you'll just let things happen to you, and you'll just accept them, and then you'll just roll with the punches as they start flying in, so to speak. Or are you going to say, you know what, this is what living means to me under these circumstances? Now, yes, they're not ideal. No, I didn't really prepare for them. However, they're here, and I have to deal with them, and I can choose to deal with them in a way that suits me, that gives me an element of ownership, an element potentially of control over what that lived experience is going to be for you and for the other people in your life, because it's going to be a very difficult thing for people to deal with. If you are dealing with a mortality issue, as an example, or you're dealing with some sort of health challenges, or you're dealing with certain things that are just not going your way, that gives you the opportunity to choose a path. And the path can be wallowing in self-pity and negativity, or it can be, this is the hand that I've been dealt for right now, I'm going to have to do something about that. So thinking about, and you've got enough evidence of this already, and it doesn't have to be a catastrophic event, just a life-altering event where possibly you had to leave a job that you weren't expecting to leave at a particular point in time. You didn't get that promotion that you were looking for. A relationship failed or broke down when you were really hoping and investing in the longer term for that particular person or that particular relationship. There's going to be that evidence that you already have, that you can sit down and say, who was I in that moment? Was that the best version of myself? How intentional was I? Were the actions that I took commensurate with my own personal values? And if not, why not? And you can blame other people if you like, or you can take full accountability and ownership and then say, you know what, when something like that happens again, I'm going to remember this moment, I'm going to remember this analysis, and I'm going to make sure that I actually live into this and lean into this as a better version of myself. And the third concept I have there, I mentioned it briefly, was in terms of your values, knowing and understanding your values. I have a previous podcast on my website and a previous blog on my website as well, dedicated to core values, knowing and understanding what your core values are, what your secondary values are, how to actually know and understand how to draw them out from yourself if you haven't done any values work before, and then really genuinely giving yourself that chance to say, right, when I have a circumstance where I don't have absolute ownership of this, I don't have absolute or ultimate control over what the outcome is going to be, how can I lean into and use the foundational values, the core values that I have in my life to live to the best of my ability under these circumstances and situations? Because if you do that, other people are going to recognize and notice what you're doing, and they're going to tailor their support. They're going to tailor their interactions with you, the energy that they're bringing to and for you, to give you that best opportunity to succeed. And success is going to mean different things depending on what the circumstances are going to be. And really, he was given a choice by his oncologist. His oncologist sat down and said, right, cards on the table. You know, you obviously know what this looks like. You've seen the test results. You can diagnose these on your own. I'm here to help you navigate through this. What do you want to do? And if you ask yourself that question, or you have someone in your close circle that's able to ask you that question by meeting you where you are, then you have that opportunity to say, right, okay, what do I want to do? I don't want to live with this circumstance or situation, but it's here. So I'm going to have to do something with that. What's the best next action of integrity for me as I move forward? And not a lot of people do that. You know, there's certainly opportunities to feel sad, feel mad, feel cheated in some sort of way. And of course, those are natural feelings that you would have, and please don't suppress those or try and ignore them in any way. Feel the feelings and then make a choice about what you're going to do with the information that you have afterwards. And what he really struggled with, and if you start to think about this in terms of ownership, in terms of the ability to lead and manifest your own success as you're going forward, he really struggled with the ability of not being able to plan. I can't plan properly because I don't know what my health is going to look like at this particular point in time. I can't plan anything, further than the next appointment or maybe the next week or the next month, because there are certain things that are out with my control for right now that I'm going to have to just wait and see. So then the planning horizon doesn't go away completely. It just becomes something different than what you were hoping for or what you were used to. And think about that in your situation. Are you planning things that are coming up a year, 18 months, 2 years down the line, or do you have a more rigid and intimate and near-term structure within that to say, you know what, I really don't know who I'm going to be, what I'm going to be interested in, what I'm going to be doing, what I'm going to be able to do at a point in time down the road, say for example 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But what I do know for right now is this is what's the most important thing to me. I want to give myself a good experience. I want to give other people a good experience. I want to make sure that I am living my best life with the time that I have available, with the circumstances that I'm dealing in, and then move into that. Create an action plan. Check how you're doing. Check if you're actually doing what you said you're going to do. If not, why not? Course correct if and when required. And it's really having that honest conversation with yourself. It's so important to say, I am where I am. The circumstances are the circumstances. What do I want to do about that? Who do I want to be during that? What experience do I want to give myself and my circle of influence as I navigate through this thing? And ultimately, at the end of the day, for me, this was not really a book about dying. It was a book about living. It was a book about doing what you can with the information that you have and doing the very best that you can with said information. And it was really an emotional and literal enlightenment for me to really question the choices that I've been making in my life up to this point, and the choices that I want to make for myself and my loved ones and those that I care about as I move forward. And it's really just landing on what are my core values, and am I living to those values? And if not, what can I do to relive or get back into living to those values? And if I am living to those values, really continuing to make sure that I'm intentional about the continued journey of doing that. And I really think, I like to try and tackle some difficult topics at times, not awkward topics or anything sensational to try and get clicks or likes or anything like that, but things that are genuinely meaningful for a life well lived. And I really landed on, mortality, it shouldn't be an awkward topic. In fact, it's actually the opposite. For me, it helps when you start to think about time is finite and we only have so much of it. Are we actually using it to the best of our ability for what it is we want to achieve in our goals and in our life overall? And depending on what the answer is, then you have information to be able to say, okay, I'm going to change this thing. I'm going to move and lean more into this particular area. I'm going to stop doing this. I'm going to start doing that, and it can help create clarity. It can help create focus for you and those that are around you, because you get to start to focus on what's important and what's important to you and what's important to other people, and then give yourself the best opportunity to succeed once you have that clarity and leaning in to the meaningful, genuine action steps that are going to get you closer to who and where you want to be.